So Yoshino and Nanami are two very different but equally fascinating characters that Jujutsu Kaisen has introduced us to. One is a salary man type persona who's total boss, who honestly is a pretty decent teacher despite not wanting that title, who honestly puts children's lives above his own and does whatever it is that he can pass some words of advice to someone who he sees potential in, but won't get killed no matter how gun-ho that person may be. Where Yoshino is someone who you feel bad for, you really do. The type of person whose dialogue talks about the difference of if you had a button that could punish those who hurt you versus punishing just bad people in general. It really just kind of puts into perspectives like what bad things can really do to a person who this kid probably was just a normal guy, seemingly has some sort of scar underneath his eye that he keeps hidden with his hair. I'm not sure if that was done through bullying or just natural causes, but still, like, you just feel like if he could have just had a normal life, he would have ended up in a situation where he was down the sewers listening to someone who's trying to cause chaos to the human race, and after being exposed to so much chaos himself, is now listening to probably the first person who's talked to him in a long time who didn't beat him or belittle him and just treat him as a normal person. It's just such a tragic story, and I can already tell that these two are going to be some of my more intrigued characters because even though I feel like this guy needs to run, on the other hand, him being with someone who is this deranged and crazy, who has as much power as he does. I mean, we were fighting curses who I was fully convinced were curses, and then we learned that no, they're humans. They may have died initially, but like that's still human, that's not natural curses. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be bad. We're gonna see a lot of deformities that are just going to make our stomach churn. And I'm curious if the direction Jujutsu Kaisen wants to go is that we're not sure, are we actually fighting curses or humans here? And that's going to put a wedge in someone like Yuji's persona of not knowing should he fight or not. But it is nice at the very least that the doctor was saying, hey, don't think like you killed a human. They were killed as soon as this happened. You were fighting a monster, don't forget that. So hopefully he's not going to get too lost in that thought, but there is room to really do some interesting narrative choices with that dilemma. Just overall, I thought this episode was incredible. I really enjoyed both perspectives this week a hell of a lot. I mean, when you remove Gojo from the equation, I'm starting to be like, okay, I mean, he's the best boy here. Or do we really need to remove him? But honestly, Nanami really stole the show for me. I really like his cool, calm, collected persona and how he makes Yuji really do a lot of the work. He's really making him be a hands-on learner. And even when he has the answers himself, he forces him to try to get there as well, because it's not guaranteed that he's going to be around forever, nor does he want to be around forever. Based on the end of the episode, it almost is giving me some red flags, like, are death flags being set here sooner already? Like, I really hope not, but I mean, this is Jujutsu Kaisen. Anything is possible. Anyone can die. I mean, we've already killed the main character once. Even though he did get brought back, other people don't really have that luxury. In terms of the abuse that was portrayed in this episode, it was disgusting. I mean, you have this horrifyingly vile woman who uses these three thugs as just little pawn monkeys who she's like, oh, he stared at my breasts. And they beat the living shit out of him to the point where he nearly died because of that. And all she's doing is just to see how lashed on they are to her. And all they're doing is they just want to bang her. And the fact that he actually called that out, it's a brave but very stupid thing to do. And I mean, this kid could have easily ended up getting killed. I mean, there is one shot that honestly made me just want to vomit. I was like, not because of the actual imagery, but just thinking of how far she pushed these people to do something all for a lie. And honestly, this kid just seemed like a nice person, and now that nice person is on the road to insanity and murder. That's honestly what it feels like. And you understand from his perspective why he would chase after someone who not only killed those vile people, but has an ability that you want, because there's so many disgusting people who get to have a seemingly normal life while you get the living shit beat out of you for something you didn't do. It's understandable why he chases after that horrifying power, but it doesn't excuse it. Like, you're not necessarily sad or you're upset because these people ended up in a horrifying death. You're sad for what this kid's life is going to become. That's what's the beauty of Jujutsu Kaisen's writing in this week's episode, and how both sides, you have one being guided by a really, really solid guy, and one who's very, very bad. And honestly, if the roles were reversed, you feel like Yuji could have ended up in the same situation, and then someone like Yoshino would have ended up over with our boy. It just feels like situations really do shape the character, And it's very fascinating to see how, despite having two very opposite perspectives, they were equally interesting and fascinating, and honestly were kind of two sides of the same coin. And I think that was a brilliant directing choice. The fact that they went the extra mile to really show just how two different guidance counselors here are really shaping two separate people around the same age by the looks of it into completely different people. And the fact that they're using these curses in a cage to probably say, oh, is he actually going to notice it or not? That's going to say, should we do anything, or are we going to just let this kid be? Because if they walk past him with a cage of bunch of curses and he doesn't notice those curses or doesn't appear to notice them, they're not going to bother interrogating him because, well, it's just a kid who ran from a movie theater because a bunch of weird shit happened. Makes total sense. But if he notices the cage, then we're going to have some talks about who did it so we can get a lead. I don't think they're there to necessarily like hurt the kid, but more of like get answers if he knows those answers. And I have the feeling that he's not going to notice the cage on purpose, because I feel like, you know, after that big talk in the sewer, that probably is going to be like, hey, there's going to be people probably coming after you, probably security cameras. Just make sure you don't give any clues that you know who I am, and I'll continue to give you my words of wisdom and maybe even treat you to some of the power that I possess. It's just such an engaging episode with some badass fights. I mean, that fight on the rooftop before knowing that we're fighting like it used to be humans. I mean, there was some crazy ideas with her powers. Like, I love the idea that he's using not only just a blade that's covered up, he's using the blunt side of it, and he's slicing weak points into them. And the stronger the enemy, the better of his ability appears to be. And then you get our boy, who apparently, if he can master what he's doing here, I don't think many people would be able to stand in his way. And you always assume the main character is going to be one of, if not the most powerful characters. But it's nice that Jujutsu Kaisen is saying, where our boy's at currently is basic bitch level, but push comes to shove and a lot of training later, he could be the most powerful character, even ignoring the demon inside his head. So it's interesting how it's almost like he's punching twice, and his initial force from just his normal strength is insane already, but then once that cursed energy flows in, it's pretty much like having a nuclear bomb go off in your stomach, it feels like. So it's just great how they're so easily able to convey thoughts of like, hey, here's all this information about power and world building. We're giving you this lesson as we're teaching you because you are a student, all things considered, but we're giving you that hands-on learning rather than sitting in a classroom, which honestly a lot of people were probably worried about, myself included. Whenever you introduce school series, you kind of just feel like, oh, they're going to be sitting in a class. No, this is hands-on learning, and it's way more entertaining because of that. Voice actors on point. I honestly continue to love the voice acting for the curses. Sometimes you get that human dialogue, like in this episode. Other times you get just mumbles and things like that. It just gives you a very painful realization that there is some form of intelligence deep down, but clearly they're too far gone and there's no chance of survival. I mean, you even get some information about the talking curses that we've seen before, and it's going to be interesting to see where they take that narrative. There's a lot of pieces at play, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's convoluted. It feels like we're just really building up to a second core that's going to knock our socks off and make this just look okay in comparison, and already we think it's a masterpiece. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. What did you think, and where do you think next week is going to go? Because there's definitely some intriguing setup for sure, with potential death flags. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.